The Edison Ghost Phone, the Tesla Spirit Radio. In 1920, Tom Edison and Nikola Tesla independently experimented in inventing machines to communicate with spirits and ghosts. Even today, on shows like Ghost Adventures and the Holzer's Files, they are making use of something called a spirit box, which is similar, but a much more evolved version of a concept that originated 100 years ago during the Spanish flu pandemic, when more than 50 million people died from an incurable disease. The grieving survivors were desperate to connect with the poor souls that they had lost, and inventors Edison and Tesla believed that they could provide an electronic device to help people connect with their deceased relatives. Edison called his the Ghost Phone. Tesla called his a spirit radio. I spoke with our friend, New York Times bestselling author Bill Birnes, and he explained how these two brilliant men thought this could all be possible. Two brilliant and respected inventors experimented with developing machines that could contact the dead. We spoke to Bill Birnes, who's the founder of Ancient Aliens, UFO Hunters, and a contributor to the Unsealed Files TV show. He's also the author of Edison versus Tesla, the battle over their last invention. He tells us about the rivalry between the two famous inventors, and not just why they wanted to create a device to communicate with ghosts, but also how they believed it was possible. At the time of this recording, the cases of COVID-19 seem to be rising as our population is coming out of lockdown. But the good news is that people are recovering. Cases seem to be not as severe, and the daily death rate seems to be steadily declining. Obviously, we don't want to lose one single life, but at least things seem to be moving in the right direction. While the COVID-19 pandemic is more than nearly anyone alive can imagine, this situation pales in comparison to what happened almost exactly 100 years ago.
People were dying literally in the streets from the flu. There was no way to treat, there was no cure. There's no way to treat this. It just came in wave after wave after wave from 1918, again in 1919, again in 1920.
In the wake of apocalyptic death tolls, could it actually be that Thomas Edison saw opportunity?
So Edison, seeing the death around him in 1920, and it was all over. I mean, it was almost it was as bad as it was today. Actually worse, because hospitals were overwhelmed.
Sure.
He figured if there could be a way for the living to talk to the dead, it would be the greatest consumer product in history. And that's what he set out to build, the Ghost Phone. And it was a brilliant concept. His idea was if he could have a beam of photons, right, a narrow beam of light, a photon beam, aim it at a light meter, because he believed in quantum physics and believed that human beings were, all life on planet Earth was composed of these things called life units, basically quanta. And if he could convince a collection, a cohesive collection of quanta from a living person, the person's consciousness that was now disembodied because the body had died, to cross that beam of photons, it would register on a light meter, and he would see the light meter and the voltmeter attached. He'd see that trigger, and he'd know that he captured some quanta from a living person, the consciousness of a departed person. So he would then get these mystics and clairvoyants to summon spirits of the dead to cross the power beam, to cross the light beam. That was Edison's Ghost Phone. That was his invention.
Well, I mean, this just dovetails perfectly into the point you're making, is that the Ouija boards and the spirit boards and the talking boards were incredibly popular because everybody...
Of course they were. The exact same reason. because people believed. So that's why Edison had people working a Ouija board to summon the spirits to cross the light beam.
But yeah, he wanted to infuse the light bulb with the Ouija board and come up with a hybrid.
Right. Tesla had another view. Tesla believed that energy, just like Einstein had died, was eternal. So he believed that the voices of the dead were still out there in a frequency that he could find. Tesla believed that he could capture sound from the departed because those frequencies never died. That's EVP. That's electronic voice processing. So that's what, so Tesla invented that. So that you have these two great electrical engineers, the greatest inventors of the 20th century, competing with each other over who could first talk to the dead. And that lasted until Edison died.
And Edison was trying to turn signals from the dead into light, a visual.
Right.
And Tesla was coming up with an auditory response. Well, what do you think? Is there something to these theories? Who had a better chance of making contact, Edison or Tesla? And if you don't know, you can try it out for yourself. Just Google Tesla Spirit Radio, and you can get yourself the plans to build a Spirit Radio. It'll just cost you about $30 in parts. And good luck with that. Of course, some people might think you're crazy. In fact, Thomas Edison's own family had a big problem about his ideas about a ghost phone. And I heard that he was he was very enthusiastic about it, and after his death, the family went ahead and had those pages of his autobiography removed.
Exactly.
Because they were embarrassed by it.
Not even embarrassed. The church was furious. I mean, can you imagine the church looking at somebody saying, I can talk to spirits?
Right.
Holy mackerel. I mean, that flew right in the face of American conservative religion in the early 20th century.
Thanks so much for joining us, and let us know what you think about the concept of communicating with spirits using one of these methods. Please tell us in the comments below which method you think is more likely to work, Edison's Ghost Phone or Tesla's Spirit Radio. And while you're there, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. Just go ahead and hit that subscriber button and hit the bell for instant notifications every time we come up with a new segment. And if you're still interested and intrigued with the subject of Nikola Tesla, we hope you'll check out one of our segments that we did on Tesla's theory of time travel and how the government might be using it today. I'm Sean Paul of Intrigue Journal, and we'll see you next Thursday.